just for you and me. The dogwood was never to grow strong and tall again.
All right. My name's Lonnie Jones. I'm telling you my life story, and I believe I'm on episode number 24 today. And we talked on 23, we talked about me working opera land and working over in Vine Hill Projects, and Kevin Dobson coming over and getting, I got him a job over there, and he's still there today, and I believe that's close to 27 years ago, and obviously he's going to retire from there. It looks like he's going to anyway, and if he don't, he's going to he'll change his mind pretty quick, because last time I talked to him, he's hanging in there because a lot of benefits that they had over there, and he's accumulated a lot of time and everything, and so it turned out real good for Kevin. But anyway, I left there, and when I left there, I went into a rehab place called the New Life Lodge down in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, because I am an alcoholic, and because I am an alcoholic doesn't mean I drink, but it means there is no cure for being an alcoholic, but there are ways of treating it. So I quit that job, and to tell a little bit about how I got down there is the word was out, of course, that I was an alcoholic, and I drank too much, and the more I drank, the funnier I got. I wasn't a mean alcoholic and didn't want to fight and all that kind of thing. It just, I enjoyed drinking and playing my bluegrass and country music, and those are the things I was doing. But the word got out and I have no idea how it happened, but a lady down in Dixon, Tennessee, which I am from Dixon, Tennessee, I got this phone call one day, and she said, I understand that you have a drinking problem. Well, of course, I proceeded to tell her that I did have a problem, and her husband, his name was Charles Kimbrough, and he had been drinking ever since I knew him. I got to have me a cough drop, and because I'm raspy a little bit here today, but he had been drinking, her husband had been drinking ever since I knew him, and he was much older than I. And she said that her husband had quit drinking, and that he had gone to a place called the New Life Lodge down in Burns, Tennessee. Well, I tell you what, that got my attention, because if that guy could quit drinking, anybody could. Because he drank like a fish, I'm telling you. Don't remember seeing him when he was too sober much. But anyway, he had gone down to the New Life Lodge, and that's where he had went to get his rehab and everything, and she told me that he had been sober for 5 years. At that time, he had been sober for 5 years. So I got to thinking, I said, well, again, if he can quit drinking, anybody can. They can do something for you. Well, right off the bat, I wasn't all that crazy, because alcoholics don't think they're alcoholics. See, everybody tells them they're alcoholics, but they don't believe it, and they're looking for a reason to take another drink. That's what an alcoholic does. So, make a long story short, we got done with that conversation, and I asked her whereabouts down there it was at, and she told me. So I didn't have any money, because I had a little old machine shop after selling my other machine shop that I had. I had a little old machine shop over at another place that I didn't have. I like a drill press and a milling machine and a lathe, and that's all I had. But I was doing a couple of jobs for Peterbilt Motors and General Electric, sort of keeping me alive. I was doing actually pretty good with them, but I didn't have any cash money, and it was going to cost $3,200 for 30 days to go through the New Life Lodge and detox me and feed me and sort of. And they have this program in there of this book, and they teach you of a higher power, which we all know that's God, of course. And they teach you of the higher power is in control. So anyway, I decided what I need to do was I needed to go to the New Life Lodge. I had all I wanted. In other words, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's what alcoholics are. You have to hit a bottom before you realize that you really are an alcoholic. So I proceeded to go down to the New Life Lodge, but I didn't have any money. And the day I went down there, or the night I went down there, I was probably as drunk as I'd ever been in my life. But I knew I had to go. I'd had all I wanted. I didn't want no more. I was done. And I went down there and I stepped up in the back door of that New Life Lodge office, sat down on the couch, and they told me that it was going to cost $3,200 to go through the New Life Lodge. Well, I had done some work for General Electric up in Hendersonville. They owed me $3,500. That's what they owed me. So I told them, I said, that check is due in 2 weeks. And if they'd accept that check when it come in, I would sign the check over to them. But I need to start my treatment right away. So this is about 6 o'clock at night. And they said, that's not a problem whatsoever. You come right on in here, make yourself at home. We'll show you around a little bit tonight and then give you an orientation tomorrow of what we do and what takes place and everything. And we have these meetings 4 times a day about the higher power. We got the books you read out of. So, like I said, I was drunk as a skunk when I walked in there. But when I set my foot in that back door, I knew I was done. Because I had asked God to help me. Here's where God comes in. I had asked God, prior to me getting that phone call from that lady, I had asked God to help me. And if he would help me, I would help myself. So I did that. And when I did that, a week later is when that phone rang. Well, guess who steered me? How in the world, why would a woman that I hadn't saw in 25 years, that I had an alcoholic husband, why would she have called me? Only through the grace of God was that phone call made because I had my little talk with God about me quitting drinking. And I would quit drinking if he had helped me. And everybody needs help. I don't care who they are, somewhere in their life, they need help of some kind. Well, I needed God's help. And he helped me. So he put me in the New Life Lodge for 30 days. Well, I went into the New Life Lodge and I weighed about 138 pounds, the best I can remember. Because I drank and I wouldn't eat. I would drink and I wouldn't eat. Well, at that time I was married to a lady. Her maiden name was Spry. And most everybody out there that's listening to this knows who Shirley was. But I was married to Shirley at the time. And of course, needless to say, my drinking and everything goes along with it is causing us problems. So anyway, I went into New Life Lodge when I was still married to Jerry. Not to Jerry, I'm sorry, to Shirley. And again, most of you know Shirley is going to be watching this probably. So, and those that don't, she was my second wife. And by the way, let's clear things up. There wasn't nothing wrong with none of my wives. It was more me than it was them. And all my wives were good people. It just sometimes things didn't gel one way or another, and so you get divorces and so forth and so on. So I thought I had problems. I thought I had really problems. So I went to my first meeting at the New Life Lodge. I didn't have no problem. I was nothing compared to who was in the people that was in there. They were people that was in there would go into Kroger's and steal a hamburger and then steal anything they could steal and put it under the coat, walk out. One old boy was down in Texas sleeping in a cardboard box out in the middle of a field. And a lot of them was on drugs, not just alcohol. I was on nothing but alcohol. I never took drugs. I never took drugs. Before or after, I don't even like a pain pill. I got pain pills right now that I don't take. I just don't like pain pills. So anyway, from hearing those guys' stories of what they had gone through, and before they got down there, I wasn't nothing but a lamb compared to them. I didn't have a story compared to them, because when I was drinking, I was working. I didn't lay out of work. I wasn't late for work. I worked 5 days a week. In my younger days, I worked I worked many a Christmas, many a New Year's. I never was without a job. So I didn't have the problem they had. Most of them didn't have jobs, didn't have food half the time, and they basically were alcoholic, homeless people until they got their parents or somebody put them in the New Life Lodge. And I could have went to another place or two. Like my son, he went to a rehab center, and I can't think the name of it right off the top of my head that he went to. I could have went to it. But the thing about it, it cost 3 times as much to go to it as it did the New Life Lodge. And so anyway, I went to the New Life Lodge, and we went to our meetings every day. And my first job there for the first week is I slept down on the couch down in the main big room, and it had a big fireplace, and I kept that fireplace going. That was one of my job for the first week I was there. Well, I went to eat breakfast. The first morning I was there, I went to eat breakfast, and I was going to drink a cup of coffee, and I couldn't get the coffee. I spilled coffee all over me because I was nervous. Not nervous because I was scared. I was shaking because of the alcohol that they had proceeded that very first night to detox me. And during a detox, they give you these some kind of pills that will help detox you and make you not have to go through such bad withdrawals. Well, I didn't have a bad withdrawal of no kind at all, but I couldn't get a fork up to my mouth, and I couldn't drink coffee because the detox was taking all that out of my system, and I was having a hard time just eating. But we would go to our meetings, four meetings a day. There was we'd have a meeting, and in about 2 hours we'd have another. Anyway, it lasted up till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Our meetings would. From 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, we would have 4 meetings. And it was all, and we read out this book about who invented the book about alcoholism. Talk about, biggest thing they talk about of all things was a higher power. A higher power, which I totally understand the higher power thing. But anyway, I continued on at the New Life Lodge. It was back then, it had one big clubhouse with a room or two in it, and they had little cabins spread out all over the place, and 2 people would be assigned one of those little cabins. Well, I basically spent I spent my first 2 weeks in the New Life Lodge doing making the coffee. Everybody drank coffee. Coffee is what you drink there. I don't even think there was a Coca-Cola in the house. But you drank milk and you drank coffee, and we consumed a lot of coffee. So I was in charge of making coffee, keeping the fireplace going for the first 2 weeks before I ever went up to one of the cabins and started staying there for my second 2 weeks. Well, like I said, I went in there weighing about 138 pounds, and I had a 30-inch waist. And after the second week, starting on the third week, I started gaining 1 and 2 and 3 pounds a day, because I was eating steaks, pork chops, roast beef, you name it, they had it. The best food you could ever ask for, they had it. All the milk you could drink. They'd have cake and ice cream. They had everything, anything you want. And then, of course, knowing me, my kind of guy I am, I got in with the cook. Well, I got a chocolate pie every day of my own. He would make me a chocolate pie every day. And he'd put it in a cooler somewhere where nobody knew where it was at. He would tell me where it was at. Of course, I'm staying down there keeping the fire going and keeping the coffee made. Well, I'm eating chocolate pie right and left. Of course, one chocolate pie would last me, well, it'd last me 2 days, about what it boils down to. It's about all it would last me, about 2 days. And I have all the milk I wanted. Nothing was locked up down there. I had nothing locked up. And when you go in there, you got the option of going in there and getting sober and staying sober, or you had the option of walking off. If you wanted to leave, you could leave anytime you wanted. Nobody was going to make you stay there. Nobody had the power to make you stay there. If you didn't want to get sober, hit the road. But they would teach you how to stay sober, get sober, and stay sober. Well, the third week that I was in there, we had a little road trip. We came up here, got on the van, and we came up here to a church, and I'm not sure, I believe it was Belmont. There's a church, big church over in Belmont. Anyway, all the guys loaded up into 2 vans, and they brought us up here for this speaker to speak to us. Well, I walk in there, and 2 seats down from me, guess who was sitting there? Jerry, my wife, my first wife. At that time, I was done remarried to Shirley, but my first wife was in there because, and some of you that's going to see this will remember the doctor name, and his name was Chickania. He was an Indian doctor, and his name was Chickania, and he was from a Madison hospital over here. He worked out of there. And if you wanted any kind of a pill, he'd subscribe it to you. It didn't make no sense what it was. So that's what she had gotten on. He was our doctor back in those days, and she'd gotten on pills, and of course I was on alcohol. So here we walk in. I walk in there, and there she is, two rows up from me, sitting up there in the same thing I was in. So we both went through it. And what's funny about it is, it's amazing how we went through it at the same time. It was almost the same time when we went through it. So anyway, we went through that, and then of course we went back down to the New Life Lodge, and I spent the remainder of my 2 weeks there. I went on December 31st and came out on January the 1st. I came out on January the 1st. I believe it was New Year's Day, or it would have been, or I went in on December the 1st. I spent Christmas there, so I came out on January the 1st. I came out on January the 1st. Came out on New Year's Day. And so I spent Christmas at the New Life Lodge. And of course, they're still speaking of the higher power, which I understand. The higher power, I understand all about that. And the books, I've still got those books that we read, and some of them are like that thick. And so that's where I went to get to my rehab to get sober. And I got a book right here that I have written. It's called My Story, Mine and God's Story, what God's done for me. And only through the grace of God today am I sober. Only through the grace of God am I sober at all, because I asked Him for His help. Here's a little book, got about 5 or 6 pages in it. One of the most valuable books in my life. I've had this written a long time. I wrote this way back when I first came out of there. And the only thing we've done now is Rita has put it in color for me. And if anybody would like to have one of these books, just you can let us know. If you'd like to, you can let me know through my email, which is lonnie.jones09@comcast.net. lonnie.jones09@comcast.net. Contact me through my email, and I've got these books. So we had some new ones printed. This is the first one's ever come out in color. In fact, I've been out of these books for a long, long time, and I decided to do my life story, and I decided to put this book back out. And there's a lot in there that has to do with, it's about God's help and you willing to do what God asks you to do, or you ask yourself to do. For instance, alcoholism is no different than eating too much. You eat too much, you get fat, you get hung on eating too much, and you can't. It's a whole lot harder to lose that weight after you eat too much. It's like drinking. Once you become an alcoholic and you can't stop drinking, it's a whole lot harder to stop drinking than it was to drink. But if you ask God for the help, God will help you. He helped me, and I'm no different than no one else. And every chance I get, I try to talk to anyone that I know that is drinking too much. And while I'm into this little book here, this little book, I'm going to tell you about my smoking. I use what's in this book, and what before this book ever existed, I used the same thing up here about smoking that I used about drinking. I was smoking 2 packs a day, 3 packs on weekend a day. And one night, this was after I had gotten a divorce from Shirley. I had gotten a divorce from her. And I had moved out and I was living in an apartment. And I would smoke a cigarette about 2. When I go to bed, I smoke about half of a cigarette. And then I would put it out and lay it in an ashtray. And about 2 in the morning, get up and go to the bathroom, come back, light it up, and smoke the rest of it. Well, one night, and you're all alone, you're all by yourself. Nobody around even knows. Most people didn't even know where I was at. But I was in an apartment complex over off of Nolensville Road in Woodbine, and I lit that cigarette up, and it took my breath away from me. It took my breath away from me. And I thought I was going to die sitting on the side of that bed, basically by myself. And somebody would have had to found me. Well, it just at my very end of what I thought I was going to die, basically die, because I couldn't get my breath. I got my breath. I got my breath. And the first thing I did when I got my breath, because I was praying to God the whole time that I couldn't get my breath. You know, is this how I'm going to die? Is this how it's going to be? I looked up through the ceiling. I looked up through the ceiling. And I said, God, if you help me stop smoking, I will never smoke again. And I woke up the next morning like I had never had a cigarette a day in my life. And I have never had another cigarette a day in my life. I told him if he'd help me, I would help myself. And that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what God did. And I've never wanted cigarette. You hear these people that has quit smoking on their own, and that is wonderful. The greatest thing in the world to be able to do things on your own without any help. Why? It seemed like I needed God's help to help me, so I asked Him to help me. Well, my point being is not only do the ones that quit on their own like that, said I'd give $5 for a cigarette right now. Well, let me tell you something. When God told me, basically, without saying anything to me, that you'll never have to smoke again and you'll never want another cigarette again, that's what happened. I have never had a desire for a cigarette since that night I looked up through the ceiling and asked God to help me stop smoking. I'm going to end on that note of the smoking and the drinking. I'm going to end up on that note right there. And that was chapter 24, and I'll see you. I tell you what, we got to do a couple songs, and when we get these songs done, then I'll get back with you on chapter 25, and we'll see what we can talk about, what God's done for me then. So, we don't forget to also, we have Friendship Missionary Baptist Church is at 101 Flat Ridge Road in Goodnessville, Tennessee, and we'd love to have you up there on Sundays if you could. We'd just be proud to have you come and sit in and listen to our preacher. And Nelson Garrett is his name, and he is just a wonderful preacher, and we have a beautiful, wonderful little church, and we'd love to have you. And for any reason you can't come, you can tune us in on Facebook to the Friendship Missionary Baptist Church on Facebook at 11 o'clock on every Sunday morning. And also, I believe it's 6 o'clock on Wednesday nights, I believe. You can also tune in Facebook then. So we'll leave it there, and we'll see you on episode 25. So let's play some music. God sent Elijah to make his word known. He said, woman, don't you worry, for God sent me today. And before you even ask him, help is on the way. Just hold on. Trouble of this life of mine, burden get you down. You think no one's listening, you think no one's around. Just remember what his word says, just trust him and obey. Keep your eyes toward the heaven, help is on the way. Just hold on a little longer, help is on the way. A brighter day is coming for those who believe and pray. Help won't help tomorrow if you give up today. Just hold on a little longer, help is on the way. Help won't help tomorrow if you give up today. Just hold on a little longer, help is on the way. Help is on the way. Thank you all for hanging there with us.
Jesus died on the cross from a dogwood tree. He gave his life and soul just for you and me. The dogwood